the worst part for me about anything to do with winter is that it gets dark so early. Hello friends, Kevin, your budget travel guy here, and as you can probably guess by this, it is kind of cold, and that is one of the things we're going to talk about today is temperatures and nights. And you may have seen some other videos on winter, but there's a few things they seem to always leave out that I'm going to hit on here in a few minutes. First of all, to give you an idea of what's going on, at this time of year, if you've been watching the weather, we've had a big snowstorm come through and really caused a lot of issues in about a third of the United States. The area I'm in didn't get the snow. Actually, it was pretty nice then, but now we've dived down a few days later. It is about 27 degrees tonight. It is going to be about 8 to 15 degrees by the end of the week at night here. So a little bit unpleasant. And for some of you who haven't always been out on the road, you know the great thing is, hey, you head south, you head to Texas, you head to the southern part of Arizona. And I can tell you last week, I'm not in southern Arizona, but I have some buddies that's out there. They were fighting this same stuff. 25-degree nights, rainy days. In general, your weather is a little better than that out there, but if you were out there at this time, it's no better than where I'm at right now. 40-degree days, 25, 27-degree nights. As you may know, if you're a subscriber to this channel, I actually have 2 vans now that I use at different times. And I don't say that to brag. I am lucky at this point to be able to have two different older vans. The other one is a minivan. This one is a full-size, essentially converted cargo van. And we'll get into some of the differences and some of the similarities here with what ends up happening. Now, the minivan, of course, is going to heat up pretty much like a car if you're driving down the road. You have the ability to, to cut the engine on, and in 5-10 minutes, you should be able to warm that minivan up to a decent temperature if you have to. As far as sleeping through the night, I've been in the minivan down to about 30 degrees before. With a good sleeping bag, it's doable, even with not having any other heat source. I do have a little propane heater that I can carry in that. If I'm somewhere with an electrical hookup, I have a little portable electric heater. So, matter of fact, I use the same type of portable electric heater. That's what I have going on in here. If you hear a little hum in the background right now in this full-size van. This full-size van does also have propane. I'm not running the propane right now. I probably won't run the propane tonight. It will just be that little electric heater. And to give you an idea of kind of what's happened in this tonight, like I said, it's roughly 27 degrees outside. When I drove into this camp spot I'm at now, it's after dark. When I got messed around and started turning the little electric heat on, it was 46 degrees in here. That was even after driving in here, because just with the dashboard heat and stuff, this is different than a car. It is different than a minivan because you do have so much more space in here. This little dashboard heaters when you're driving is not going to heat this entire van up. It's going to keep you and your passenger comfortable when you're driving down the highway. But it does not have the ability to heat this much space, and this being a high top also. So even pulling in here, while I'm comfortable up here driving and great, the temperature back here in the middle was 46 degrees. And after running this heater for about 40 minutes now, we are up to 52 degrees in here. So, not exactly nice and balmy. Now, if I run that, for another hour, it'll probably climb up into about 60 degrees in here. Since I am going to be on electric tonight, that's going to be comfortable enough. The electric heater will run all night long, and that's basically all we're going to get is roughly, 60 degrees. So it's doable, but it's not exactly the comfort of home. I know a lot of people try to sugarcoat things and some of these other channels, and man, everything is just perfect and great on the road, and you know, rainbows and unicorns again. You have some times that are not going to be rainbows and unicorns. And unless you are an avid lover of winter, and I'm not, although I do enjoy playing in the snow, but there's no snow. It's just cold and miserable. And you're going to run into that at different points through the year, that it's going to be rainy. So everything you see with everybody on these channels is they're out till late at night, and they're sitting around the campfire with their buddies that they've met up with. And when it's this temperature, there's nobody outside. Even if there was anybody close around me, you're really not pretty much going to meet people. If you did, they're not going to be hanging out with you because it's just too cold. And the worst part for me about anything to do with winter is that it gets dark so early. A few days before Christmas, you have winter solstice, which where I'm at generally means it's going to be dark about 20 after 5. We're up into January now, adding about a minute a day back to that. So now it's dark at about 6 o'clock. And this is the worst thing for me, because now you are trapped in here. I mean, you may as well be in a little jail cell. It's too cold to get out and do anything. There's no one out. If it's raining and you hit a period where it rains for several days in a row, and it's raining at the time, you're not going to be able to get out and build a little fire and do these things. So essentially, whether you're in a big van, whether you're in an RV, whether you're in a minivan, you are pretty much a prisoner. And it depends on what your sleep schedule is. I don't get up really early in the morning most of the time. When it's cold, I really don't want to get up in the morning, you know, until it begins to warm up. So I'm probably not going to be out and about, if I'm not having to do something work-wise, until 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. Which means I have from 6 p.m. until 9 a.m. roughly 15 hours straight that I am stuck in here. So even if you can sleep for 8 hours straight and sleep well, that is still a lot of time to kill. So you're going to have to find some way to entertain yourself. And when you hit those periods of a couple of days of that, you can't get out, you can't hike, you can't walk, you can't get any exercise, it can really start to get up on your nerves. And that is just reality. So you've got to have some things, you've got to have some kind of hobby to do during those times. You've got to, whether it's books, whether it's electronic books on something like a little Kindle e-reader, listening to music, you know, even in this big van, I don't have a television in here. You've got to find some way to kill the time and be good with doing that. And over time of doing this, I've pretty much figured out how to fill the time and fill those hours, even if it's not what I really want to do sometimes. But the point I'm trying to get at is, if you go out on the road the first time and you're out this time of year, you're in for a big shock when you get stuck in these situations. And if this ends up being your first experience, you're probably going to hate it, and you're just going to chuck the whole idea of doing a lot of camping, traveling this way. So the reason I'm talking about this is to get you prepared, if you've not been out and not experienced this, of what you are going to have to deal with and what you are going to have to go through. Now, from you guys and gals that already have been out, or maybe even out on the road right now, I'd really love down in the comment section if you would put some ideals and kind of share with everyone of what you actually do to pass the time on these long, drawn out, winter, bad weather, raining for 3 days straight, trapped in your rig. What do you do to pass the time to keep from just going stir crazy? Stir crazy. Stir crazy. Luckily, I have company. Let's see who it could be. I'm talking to our friends about how crappy it is when the weather gets bad and everyone's trapped in their rig and they don't have friends to sit around the campfire with or anything. But luckily, I have a friend that has appeared. Please, friend, come in.
I have coffee.
And this friend brought coffee, which is good and a nice treat since it's 52 degrees in here. Young lady in the front row. We were discussing when it's dark at 6 p.m. and it's windy, which is a lot of the west, or it's rainy if you're a lot of the east, what you do from 6 p.m. until the time that you can actually go to sleep. Since you can't get outside to do anything, how do you spend time in your rolling prison cell?
Puzzle books, crossword books, coloring books, reading a book. Make sure you have a solar light so it has some light to see by.
Yeah, solar lights are good, especially in the minivan. And we're just talking about little lights that you can set outside or set up on the dash and will recharge just from the sun coming through the window during the day and will give you ambient lighting at night.
Or listen to music with headphones to not annoy the other person.
Yes, you don't want to annoy the other person.
Yes, really.
The,
trapped in a tin can.
The other person who doesn't want to hear Living on a Prayer one more time today. I love Bon Jovi, but I don't ever want to hear that song again the rest of my life. Remember, folks, crayons take up space, valuable space. So, as we've discussed in other videos with space, you need that 8-pack of crayons, not that 64-pack with the sharpener built into it. Because something that big, while it seems like would be a great idea, is something you're going to have to store and deal with moving around constantly.
Just take 2 or 3 pairs of shoes. Unless you're Kevin, you only take 1.
I take 1. If I have a blowout, I'll stop somewhere and buy me another $10 pair of shoes at Walmart. I don't need 15 pair of shoes. Unless I know I'm going somewhere where I'm going to have to deal with it, I'm not going to carry even boots. If I guess wrong and the weather gets bad, you know, hopefully I can stumble in a store somewhere and pick up a cheap pair. But the fact is, I just don't want to carry any more stuff like that than I have to. As you've heard in the other videos, it's that trade-off.
Be willing to give up something so you can replace it with something you found along the way.
Trade-off.
Trade-off, yeah. I gave up a pair of shoes so I could have a collection of seashells and things like that.
You gave up a pair of shoes so you could have a collection of seashells, yes.
Yeah.
Space read. Yes, so there was a trip that on the way back, she had to make do with just 13 pair of shoes instead of 14. And that was quite a sacrifice, I'm sure. You know, but again, trade-offs, the choices you have to make.
Or the trick is, if you take boots and you're not wearing the boots, then you can put stuff inside the boots and, you know, it takes up less space.
So having lots of shoes and boots, used correctly, they're little storage areas when they're not being worn. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Just between you and me, I'm not sure she tossed that pair of shoes on that trip anyway.